I'm very grateful to Neil Farwell who supported me at the Mythic tier and brings you today's video. Zedruu Bad Gifts versus Nico, Caesar and Vorinclex. A 0-lander, good stuff. Into a 2-lander with a Sol Ring. We're only going to have access to one coloured land at the moment, but hopefully we can get into another white source for Troubling Pairs and get back into it pretty quickly, so bit risky, but we can grab a Surveil land at least. Alright, there's an Izzet Signet, so do we go for an untapped land then? The Izzet Signet doesn't help us with Troubling Pairs really. I think I'd rather just try and get into a white source here and then we can try and get Troubling Pairs down pretty quickly. Alright, 9 lives would be nice, but throw it into the graveyard. We just want to be seeing as many lands as possible. Alright, draw into Detention Sphere. This type of removal, we don't mind who has control of it as soon as we've removed something. So anyway, get down a land. We've got another chance of getting into a land next turn, but we'll at least have mana from the rocks, hopefully. So we might as well take Summoning Sickness off the Bazaar Trader, and then we can get down a creature, something like the Avaricious Dragon at some point. Maybe even play Zedruu next turn if we're not doing anything else. But we want to be playing Zedruu really once they've already got control of some of our stuff, because it does have to survive a turn cycle. One of the old school commanders that doesn't trigger at the end step. Nature's Law for the green deck. Butch Deloria. 2-2 with Menace. When it attacks, it gets +1 for each other rogue and or snake you control. And you can, for 2 mana, put a Menace counter on another creature. Really cheap for that ability, I think. Crashing Drawbridge for Nico. Alright, still not drawing into a land, so with struggling on the colours so much, I'm not entirely sure that we can do anything other than play Zedruu and then maybe get into this and hand it over to someone. So we'll just have to risk getting down our commander here. Could always hand over the Izzet Signet to someone to draw an additional card, but that's probably not a good idea. We did, however, draw into Shifting Gift, so I could maybe make use of that. I don't really want to give someone Bazaar Trader though. Mosswort Bridge is a hideaway card, ready to potentially see Vorinclex next turn if he gets another untapped land. Looks as though we've got ourselves a Fallout deck then, Mr. House. Whenever you roll a 4 or higher, create a 3/3 robot, get a treasure token for 3 or higher. You get a treasure token for 6 or higher as well. The Menace goes into the right against Nico. We haven't seen 2 spells in a single turn yet at least, so I haven't been missing out on the triggers from Troubling Pairs. A Claim Jumper, going to get some land ramp going. Meticulous Archive, Surveil 1. And didn't throw anything into the bin, so gives the Vigilance creature haste with the Crashing Drawbridge, so going to be pretty aggressive here seemingly. And swings in towards us. Then thinks less of it because we've got 4 toughness in play, so goes into the left instead. Okay, well there's a Smothering Tithe at least. We can get back into the game with that potentially, so I'll just slam that down straight away. It's just risky that we're not doing anything with Zedruu when it's just floating around for this many turns. What we could do is give an opponent a treasure at the end of this player's turn, and they could always crack it before the Zedruu resolves, but we might be able to get something out of it. Invasion of Zendikar for Vorinclex, and we are the ones who have to defend the battle, so if we don't, it becomes a 4/4 Vigilance Haste that taps for a mana of any colour, and you can play additional lands. A Menace counter being put on Mr. House. And now it's a 2/2 swinging in at us, so we could double block this, but we would lose out on the Bazaar Trader, so obviously not going to do that. The 0/4 swings in at us as well. 3/3 swings in at us this time, so I'm not going to risk losing out on the Zedruu. They might have a Ganjo or something like that. I'll just allow them to swing in and hit us. And Cloud Shift now onto the Claim Jumper. The green player does have more lands than him, so we'll be able to grab 2 planes here. So getting a lot of use out of this thing. It's grabbed him 3 lands so far, obviously along with the Cloud Shift. 5 cards left in hand, and then plays a bounce land as his land for the turn. So we've got 8 mana available to us next turn. I think we'd be better off going Troubling Pairs and Avaricious Dragon, as opposed to giving someone a treasure and hoping that we can draw with Zedruu. Now there's the double spell, the first instance of a double spell, Entity Tracker And that does have flash, but decided to get it down now. Okay, so Zedruu once again triggering during the upkeep, but haven't made use of him yet. And now we finally see a land. So we could have tried giving an opponent a treasure. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go for the troubling pairs. And then do we take the 2 life while players are swinging in at us? I think I'd rather save the treasure just in case. So we'll shock in the steam vents and play ourselves an Avaricious Dragon. Oh damn it, I clicked through to the end phase by accident. I was going to give the dragon away at the second main phase. Ugh. Oh well. Those damn misclicks on Magic Online. We can just hope to draw plenty with troubling pairs. Continue to make mana with the Tithe. At least we haven't given the green player an additional card for the dragon, but definitely would have wanted him to have control of it by now. Vorinclex comes into play. Not sure if we'll see another play here with only 1 mana held up. Plays one of the lands he tutored for, and then we will not misclick again. He's got 8 cards in hand at the moment. We'll give him the Avaricious Dragon. And now the trigger goes on the stack, as it just did for us by accident. So discards his entire hand. And hopefully keeps control of this. We won't see a board wipe or anything, and we'll draw an additional card from Zedruu. If we make enough treasure, it may well be worth trying to pay the 3 treasure and hand over an Is It Signet to someone. We'll have to try and spread them around though, because if a player scoops, then they'll take all our permanents with them, and obviously that's no good for us. I discarded over here, ironically, an E-Witness, Momentous Fall, Cultivator Colossus, Titan of Industry, so he was going to start playing some big stompies. Invasion of Chandalar, Triumph of the Hordes, good to see the back of, and Regal Force, so he was going to draw plenty of cards. Good to see that card draw go in the bin. And Caesar into play now. Still not seeing any other rogues to give this the buff, but might be able to give menace to multiple creatures. Deciding not to swing in now. And then Caesar decides to scoop. Glad I didn't give him the Is It Signet. God, if anyone should be scooping, it's the green player, but he'll be able to reanimate stuff with the Saga at least. Aerial Extortionist now, so when it enters or deals combat damage to a player, exile a non-land permanent. So likely going to see the back of our Zedruu. No, okay, going after Smothering Tithe instead. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can really do about that. We can always cast it from underneath that thing at least, if we want to. Crashing Drawbridge gives everything haste, so they're going to be able to exile something else of ours. And it swings in towards us, so maybe Troubling Pairs only swings in with 1 creature. Now, if they get rid of Troubling Pairs or our commander, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6... 7, 8, 9, 10 mana available to us next turn, so we could just replay the 4 mana creatures or 4 mana spells. Yeah, Zedruu going into exile underneath the Aerial Extortionist, so we'll not put it back in the command zone, and obviously decided not to hand an Is It Signet over to anyone because we're not going to get the benefit with Zedruu anyway. But the longer Troubling Pairs survives, the more that we're likely to see triggers from it, hopefully. Okay, Swords to Plowshares probably goes on the Vorinclex, although could hold it up for this thing as well. Anyhow, Tithe first, and that allows our opponent to draw a card. They'd have always drawn a card from us casting Zedruu again anyway, so we might as well save on the command attacks. So with Zedruu being cast, the Extortionist draws again, and now it is a Parting Gust, so exile a creature. I think if they're going to do that, in response we have to go Swords onto it then. So we've made them waste their flicker effect at least, unless they've got another one. Nope. Still get to draw that card from the trigger though. And that means that they've drawn their second card, so Troubling Pairs and Smothering Tithe both going to trigger. Taking a while for the pairs to draw us a card this time. Okay, and that's a Kerr Keep, so we could activate that and then hand the token over to someone on this turn cycle, so I won't bother bluffing, we'll get it down into play straight away. Now there is going to be an additional card drawn here as well, which is good for our Troubling Pairs as well. And then if both of these swing in at us before he decides to transform this, then we'll draw again. But this is where it hurts that we discarded the Propaganda due to my misclick, so hopefully that won't hurt us too much. 2 cards now in hand for the green player. We will draw to the Troubling Pairs. Decides to pay the Smothering Tithe tax, surprisingly, so he must like what's in his hand. A Perplexing Chimera can steal a spell from someone. And now activating Mosswarp Bridge, he does have exactly 10 power in play. so can cheat something down here. Must have played a land because he's only got one card in hand at the moment. Alright, and that is a Song of the Dryads. So is there anything we can do there? I don't think there is. Just drew into the Perplexing Chimera a bit too soon, unfortunately. But we've got a decent amount of removal, so hopefully we'll be able to make use of that. But having a rough time triggering the Zedruu. So the 4/4 swings in at us. Have to imagine that Vorinclex might as well, but might decide to spread the damage simply because of the trouble. Goes in at the Invasion of Zendikar to get himself into another creature, that's fine. And does cast the Awakened Skyclave, which is the second spell. So we draw into our planes, and now has to discard the one card in his hand, which was an Unnatural Restoration, so chose not to return a permanent. I'm not sure if he could have played that and another permanent, don't think he had quite enough, so might as well just discard it straight away. A Caretaker's Talent, whenever one or more token enters, you draw a card, and you draw to the blue Enchantress as well, which triggers both of our 4 mana white enchantments. And there we see a Pramicon, so this is each player may attack only the nearest opponent in the chosen direction. So we would probably choose left so that the big green Stompy can't come in at us. And then his second spell is Nico, so draws us into another land. Creates 2 shard tokens upon entry as well. And those are enchantments. The Entity Tracker cares about entry as opposed to cast, so it does draw 2 cards here. And it's funny that a spell like this doesn't trigger only once a turn, but there's certain other effects like this that would, such as this one, for example. So yeah, I don't quite understand why that is. Doesn't really make sense, the whole only triggers once a turn thing that Wizards have been trying to do. Anyway, making plenty of treasure here, and they haven't attacked yet, but the Bizarre Trader will hopefully be able to pull a trick here, because I'm assuming that we're getting attacked. Yep. So Trouble in Pairs gives us a Steel Golem, which I will be happy to hand over to probably the Azorius player. He's actually got cards in hand. Let's make a Kobold token, tapping down our commander for green mana, and then we will declare this token as a blocker on the 3/3. And then once blocks have been declared, and we end up with priority again, and then once that's been declared as a blocker, we will hand the token over to the Azorius player. Noteworthy that if this had trample then that wouldn't work, but it doesn't, so we should only take 2 damage here. And yeah, we go down to 25. So how much can we get done here? Making some decent draws. Let's go for a Plains. I don't want to shock anything down while we're getting bombarded with attackers. We have to try and get through counter magic as well, so let's play the Perplexing Chimera. And they are holding up priority, which is noteworthy. Okay, so we can steal a spell from them now. Let's go Pramicon as well. And this is not only a half decent blocker, but it will allow us to choose left so that, yeah, the big green Stompy player can't attack us. And let's try ourselves a Steel Golem as well. I'm trying to keep my commander untapped. Yeah, I think we're fine to get rid of 3 treasure here, just in case we draw into something that is a means of us getting Song of the Dryads off at instant speed. We might be desperate for a blocker. Don't think that's going to happen, but we'll play around the fact anyway. Still holding up priority to the Steel Golem, and obviously we played that last because we can't play creatures as it stands now. And I'll hold on to it now just in case we need to use it as a blocker and then move it, but I think we should be pretty safe from the mono-green player here. He might be able to get rid of Pramicon and then swing though. It's just lucky that we've managed to hold on to Bizarre Trader. It's done some work for us this game. Not that we've been drawing cards with Zedruu. Alright, so drawing an additional card will draw us with the Trouble in Pairs, speaking of doing work. Pays the tax again, a Psychic Possession. So we could put that on Vorinclex as well, so that green players, if they draw cards, they tend to draw bucket loads of cards, and obviously he's drawing additional from the dragon as well. So there we see the Vorinclex being turned into a Saga, so hopefully don't see any fight creatures here. Okay guys, Blessing has hit the graveyard, so shuffle your graveyard into your library when it does that. There is Tyrannix Rex, a Sarith, lands obviously, Return to Nature, Garruk's Uprising, a Great Henge and a Bow of Nylea. He decided to resurrect the Tyrannix Rex and the Sarith. Does not have access to haste though, and can't attack us, so before the turn starts, let's go for Steel Golem onto the Azorius player, so that he can't play any spells. If it's a flicker deck, I'm assuming he wants to play plenty of creatures. Decides to give everything haste until the end of the turn, and that successfully is transferred over to our opponent. Probably go for Keep just for the sake of it, and then we've got a token to hand over to someone if needs be. The green player does have to discard the one card that's in his hand, and in response to that, it is exile the non-legendary creature you control, shards you control become copies of it until the beginning of the next end step, so turning that into a 3-4, or turning his 2 shards into a 3-4, so he's trying to overrun us basically. Discarded a Caged Sun over here, so could he have played that and then flipped round his commander? No, he would have only had 6 mana. I might have been tempted to play the Sun there, to be honest, and then he could have played whatever he draws into on the same turn most likely. Yeah, I might have taken a turn off for this personally. Doesn't feel good, but it's not like we are winning anytime soon. Extraordinary Journey, where X is 1. Exile up to 1 target creature, and you can play it for as long as it's exiled, and they get to draw cards similar to the last creature that was in. So we can take control of this if we want to. It might be that he's just using it to flicker his own Nico. I think I want to forego the Perplexing Chimera. Wait to grab something really good with it. Could always see a board wipe with that thing though. So that enters, they draw their second card for the turn. And speaking of which, isn't this a white effect? I know I don't like blue things being able to interact with creatures outside of bounce and maybe some enchantments like Frogify, but yeah, I don't know how these 2 colours have the same effect really. This should really be a white spell in my opinion. Anyway, going after the Pramicon, which we can just play again. We've drawn into a Donate, means we've got 1 fewer blockers here. And then an Inspiring Leader, I think we're going to have to take from our opponent. Let's see what we draw into with the Troubling Pairs first, because Perplexing Chimera we can put on the stack before we decide. Just another land. Problem is we give our opponent the Perplexing Chimera, so we're looking at 5, 9, 14, 24, yeah, 26. Yeah, I think I'll just risk saying no. I think they're trying to bait us. When they attack us, we'll get another draw at least. Yeah, so really being punished for getting rid of that propaganda before previously, like I said. We'll be able to use the Keep as a blocker though. And they won't be able to dedicate this, because we'll be able to block that easily enough. So yeah, pulling back their commander and the entity tracker means that it's 10 from the golems, 2 from this, and 3 on the vigilance. Draw from Troubling Pairs is Illusion's Grandeur. So when it enters, you gain 20 life. And when it leaves, which will be under an opponent's control, they lose 20. So let's make a Keep token. And we're going to have to block on the token, unfortunately, meaning they don't have control of one of our tokens. And they've obviously successfully exiled our Steel Golem as well with the Nico. So we'll get rid of the token and block 5 damage. So we only take 8 here, which isn't too bad, especially when we can gain life with this. And we'll have to use the Donate to hand it over to them, which is a decent draw for us while we don't have Zedruu under our control. Interesting to see how far we can get without our commander. After that has a Splash Portal, exile a creature you control and return it to the battlefield. I think we're just going to have to allow him to flicker his commander here. So he gets to make a couple more shard tokens, which means that he's going to have more 5/6s in the future. Taps down his commander in response to the Splash Portal and exiles his entity tracker. These things remain Steel Golems, and so when the shards enter, triggers the Extraordinary Journey, and he'll draw a card to his Rabbit enchantment as well. So more treasure for us. And then at the end step, there's 2 Nico triggers to be had, the Steel Golem and the Entity Tracker. But the Steel Golem does come back in under our control, which is noteworthy, so we'll have to hand it back over with the Bazaar Trader and force him to keep doing that trick. Don't actually have any creatures to play now though. We do draw into a Surveil land, which might help us. Of course we want Pramicon though, don't we? So yeah, do we have enough mana here? We want 6 plus 4 is 10, 14. So there's 8 there alone, we should have plenty. Let's go Psychic Possession onto the mono green player, who I appreciate playing this out. Then it can be Illusions of Grandeur coming in under our control. We gain 20 life when it enters, and then we want to palm it off onto the Azorius player, so we will donate it over there. It won't enter to the tracker, it'll just slide its way across the table. So they have that, and they'll lose 20 life when it dies. Then we want to... yeah, I do want the Pramicon in play now, so we'll have to hand the Steel Golem over there. And there's no real good attacks that we can take here, so I'll just say left again and hope that the Azorius player can't do too much to us, which I bet he can. Extraordinary Journey, triggering again, giving us another Smothering Tithe treasure. Let's go Thundering Falls to look at the top card of the library. That is a Pyromancer's Swath. If an instant or sorcery source you control would deal damage, it does that much +2. At the beginning of your end step, discard your hand. It'd be good to hand that over to the Azorius player, but I'm not sure we can do it, annoyingly. Although we're going to draw cards, aren't we? So let's just try it. We'll keep it on top. I don't think we're going to survive much longer. We wanted to be gaining life through all this with Zedruu, really, as well as drawing a lot of cards. But I think we've done alright, considering I threw away those cards previously. Alright, so Avaricious Dragon and the Psychic Possession going really well together. Noteworthy we do skip our draw step with this thing, though. Paying the tax on Smothering Tithe, so he doesn't like what he's drawn into so far, or he does, and he's got enough mana to spare. Draws his second card for Troubling Pairs, Psychic Possession, and Smothering Tithe, all 4 mana enchantments as it happens. Pays tax on Tithe again, and it's just another land for us, annoyingly. Another 2 lands. It's exactly what we don't want to see. Don't want to start getting flooded now. 7+ counters amongst creatures you control. As long as he can't get rid of Pramicon, we should be safe. Puts all 7 onto the Tyrannix Rex. Doesn't matter how strong that gets, it will only ever be the 4 poison counters from this thing. But I dare say both players are just staring at us. The Great Henge, tempting to take, but I'd rather take something that's about to kill us off, to be honest, and the more cards this guy draws, the better it is for us in a way. As long as he keeps hold of that dragon, he has to keep discarding his hand at the end turn anyway. Alright, so decides not to attack at all. I appreciate that he has an ally here, but after we go down, assuming we do, he still has 42 life to take the Azorius player down by. And he shouldn't be worried about the swing back, so I'd be taking in the dragon at least. Just chipping away a little bit. Anyway, he has to pay cumulative upkeep if he doesn't want to lose 20 life here. Noteworthy, he has discarded a Thassa at some point as well. And with Thassa, you flicker it and then bring it back in, yeah, under your control, whether you own it or not, so he couldn't get this out of the way with something like a Thassa. Decides to lose out on the enchantment and go down to 22. Discarded Tamio safekeeping over here, by the way. Yeah, so I was really hoping that we'd be able to get this thing into play and then hand it over to someone, but definitely not managing to do it here. Intangible Virtue, more Anthem effects and Vigilance. We will not take that from our opponent. Draws to the Entity Tracker, draws us to Troubling Pairs. Okay, and there's an offer you can't refuse, which might be able to save us from something. Flickers the Steel Golem again, and he's got 4 enchantments now, 4 shard tokens I mean, which are getting decent buffs. They are 6/7s. We're at 37 life thanks to that 20 life we gained, so that buys us another turn or 2. Although while he's making copies of these, he still can't play creature spells at least. So if we can somehow get this over to him, it'll be ideal. We play some kind of spot removal that we can take control of and redirect onto the Song of the Dryads, that'd be good as well. Draw from Troubling Pairs, a Vanquish the Horde if we're desperate. Not sure we are that desperate yet. So let's jump block with a Kirkeep token again. And then we can go on to make some blocks. Can be Pramicon onto the 3/3, chump block a 6/7, we take 18 points of damage. Now, after combat, we're going to lose the Perplexing Chimera next turn anyway to the Saga, most likely, so it doesn't look like he's casting anything anyway. But I was thinking if he does, then we might as well just give away the Perplexing Chimera, although we're giving him another creature to attack us with, so maybe it's better going down to the Saga as opposed to being put under this player's control. The Steel Golem comes back from Nico and comes in under our control. Yeah, so maybe we are best going Vanquish the Horde at this point. We can counter the Azorius player's counter with an offer you can't refuse if we like. It's a shame that we can't draw more cards to the Avaricious Dragon, but there we are. And we do skip our draw step, so I suppose there's not a whole lot of anything we can do on our next turn. I suppose it'd be fine to get out another Surveil land with this. It would be the Boros one. Yeah, I'll play Scalding Tarn so that we can get down a Surveil land. And then I think we are going Vanquish the Horde here. Only costing 2 mana, as it tends to. And I'm half tempted, if we have to use an offer you can't refuse here, then Pyromancer's Swath might have to come down, and it doesn't necessarily matter if we discard all these lands. We can just have this in play and then wait to draw into an effect that can palm it off onto someone. 7 cards in hand. It might be that he's eager to play creature spells and wants to see the back of Steel Golem. Might be able to protect his board with something like, is it Ghostway? Okay, a Resto Angel. I mean, I suppose we might as well take control of that because we can't counter it with the offer you can't refuse anyway. So we give them the Perplexing Chimera and we take the Restoration Angel. Suppose I could have handed over an Is It Signet to someone with the Bazaar Trader on the way out. Discarded over here as well at some point, an Arcane Signet and a Muldrifter. Okay, Ephemerate has more, and again, draws us into a land. Just getting flooded here doesn't feel good. Desperately trying to flicker his commander, so we'll offer you can't refuse it. And I suppose he might as well give us the Perplexing Chimera back here, because he gets to land his Ephemerate that way. Yeah, so decides to fizzle the offer you can't refuse, and could always redirect it at the Vanquish actually, couldn't he? Yeah, so that's exactly what he's doing. Not a whole lot else we can really do here, but it's cool to see these different interactions. So he is successfully flickering his commander and countering the Vanquish. But we got somewhat of an additional board here at least. Got a new creature and managed to make our opponent use some spells. So draws to the Extraordinary Journey, gets more shards with Nico, and draws to the Entity Tracker and the Caretaker's Talent as well. So we get Trouble in Pairs. We might still be able to do something this turn. We forced our opponent to do all this at least, so maybe we can draw into something relevant. Probably just another land though. Yep. And now we can't fetch the Boros Surveil land as I was aiming to. So yeah, I don't see that there's a whole lot we could have done here with getting so flooded. Maybe we'll be able to survive another turn cycle, but I doubt it. We might as well just play the Pyromancer's Swath. They're not going to play around anything that we might have in hand, so we might as well have that down. Then we can hand it over at some point, maybe, probably not. Now, if we don't hand over Steel Golem to the Azorius player, he can likely get down a big scary creature and make his shards copies of it straight away, although I think we're going down to our own Steel Golem regardless. Anyhow, we discard our entire hand to the Swath. Now we're in the same boat as the green player. We'll draw additional cards here at least. So the Avaricious Dragon is still in play, and the green player still can't attack us with the Pramicon in play, but this thing is going to be able to fight stuff out of the way, so we probably go down here. Now we draw into an Agent of Treachery. He could have done with that a lot sooner than this. Got a few draws left. He might play a creature into the Great Henge, which would draw us as well. You get to see how the deck is supposed to function at least. I mean, you can imagine how much we would have been getting into if Zedruu has stayed in play this whole time. Haven't drawn into any more spot removal for that Song of the Dryads, unfortunately. There is a Gold Knight Castigator. Drawn into Faithful Mending as well, so yeah, could draw into something relevant with that, I suppose. Now here comes the fight stuff. Maybe we can hand over Pramicon to the green player and then it'll still be in play, because will it fizzle this says fights a creature you don't control, so if we hand over a creature to him whilst the fight trigger is on the stack, then it will fizzle it because he will control the creature that he's trying to fight. Anyway, cards being drawn by our opponents. Only the first card during this turn, so doesn't trigger our Trouble in Pairs. The Great Henge will though. Or actually not the Trouble in Pairs, the Psychic Possession I mean. And it's another land for us. Tutors for 2 forests with 3 cards in hand. And now goes for fighting with the Pramicon, so you can go for another fight in response. Let's go Faithful Mending, I think. And we'll have to discard the Plains and the Angel. Unless we draw in something even worse, which there's every chance of that happening. We've got flashback on this as well, so might be able to get into something. Fighting in response on 2 the Perplexing Chimera. I think we just have to allow that. And then fighting the Angel out of the way as well. So, yeah, I mean, he's still got plenty of mana. He can just load up on the Pramicon if he wants to. But hopefully we'll be allowed to draw first. Goes after the Golem. Alright, looks as though he's allowing this to resolve. I might have added another trigger, personally, to get rid of the Pramicon. We draw a Rust Elemental, which isn't particularly good here. Sun Titan might do a bit of something, but probably not. Get rid of land and the Rust Elemental, and then it's flashback on the Faithful Mending. And you'd never guess, it's just 2 more lands, so yeah, not destined to do anything this game, I don't think. We'll attempt to hand Pramicon over to the green player just for the sake of it. He might not realise that he's about to fizzle the trigger on the Tyranix Rex. Does pass priority, so if this works the way I think it should, we can't be attacked by the green player, although the Azorius player can still take us out anyway. So yeah, now he has control of the Pramicon. This shouldn't resolve, I don't think. No, it does fizzle, so can't attack us with the green deck, but like I said, we'll still go down. Vorinclex gets exiled again and turned into a Saga. Mills 10 and puts 2 creatures into play. So with that we see lands, Elemental Bond, Keeper of Fables, Garruk, Cankerbloom, Skyshroud Claim, a Goreclaw, so reanimates the Goreclaw and the Cankerbloom. Draws 2 cards, so we draw even more to the Psychic Possession. Fights the Goblin out of the way, that's tapped anyway, and has this done some work for us this game or not? Without that, we would have been completely switched off here, because our commander's obviously gone down. A Fierce Guardianship, we do still control our commander, so we could get a free counter spell if we wanted to, but ultimately not drawing into anything we need here. Still can't attack us, and decides not to attack the Azorius player. I would have been attacking with at least something this whole game. I think I would have taken the 15-15 in to give me a head start against him. He's got plenty of mana and a full grip available to him. Of course, it's at the beginning of each end step, so we can't even hold up the counter spell. Bit of a non-bow here, but I'm sure we weren't going to save ourselves with a Fierce Guardianship anyway. We'll see if that punishes us or not, deciding to get that thing down. Ephemerate did resolve previously, so they get rebound on it here. Could activate the Nico and then flicker it. Flickering Entity Tracker is probably the thing. Doesn't look as though he's going for it, just Ephemerate onto his commander. Does still have access to haste. There's been a distinct lack of spot removal and board wipes in this game, so still has the Crashing Drawbridge from much earlier. I do like games like this where people actually keep their stuff in play though. So gets a bunch of card draw from all of his effects, meaning we get something from Trouble in Pairs. And that is a Form of the Dragon as well. That would have been really good because we wouldn't have been able to have been attacked by anything, I don't think. But we just could have done with drawing into that instead of all those lands previously, so it's just bad luck really. We'll draw 1 more card when he turns into us with Trouble in Pairs. I doubt it's going to be anything that we need. He's got 8 shard tokens in play now, so if he wants to turn them all into copies of something, then he's going to have plenty of power. Playing his second spell is 20-Toed Toad, and we draw a land. So we'll get the maximum number of draws from the Trouble in Pairs this turn, giving everything haste before he transforms his shard tokens, so 2 of these will have Summoning Sickness, I think, although we needed that to activate the commander. So it points it at the 20-Toed Toad, and yeah, he's got 2 Summoning Sick ones, but 6/6/6 Vigilance 20-Toed Toads. Goes to level 2 on this, so that is create a copy of a token, makes himself another shard, and that has Summoning Sickness as well, of course. So then it's through to attacks, and obviously we are going down here. We will draw though, so that is 36 points of damage. I'm not even going to bother making the token. And it looks as though he's going to win the game. He's got 14 cards in hand anyway. Trouble in Pairs gives us a card for 1 final time. Well, yeah, this is a cool way to win it. I think we've won 1 game on the channel with 20-Toed Toad, and I can't remember which commander we used for it, but this is a really interesting new card that we can run in Commander. So what happens here is whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, put a plus counter on it. When it attacks, you win the game if there are 20 or more counters on it, or if you have 20 or more cards in hand, and very fittingly, we draw into a land with Trouble in Pairs. So one of these triggers over here is going to resolve and see that our opponent has 20 or more cards in hand, so he's about to win the game here. Alright, so there we go. Our opponent ends up winning it with the 20-toed toad, and I think we had a okay game considering losing out on the propaganda was the main thing. We could have used the detention sphere to free up Zedruu as well, so that misclick going through to the end step and not handing the dragon over really warped the game. Easy to do on Magic Online because it's really laggy, but we got to see a good game regardless. Got to see some of the redundancy in the deck just in case we do lose our commander. We were still able to hand things over to our opponents, not to anywhere near as much of an effect without our commander, but you are going to lose your Zedruu on occasion in games like this. It's a shame because we had everything we needed really. We had all the mana from Smothering Tithe and plenty of card draw from our other enchantments, but it was a really fun game regardless and got to see a cool win with the 20-toed toad. So if you enjoyed it, be sure to leave it a like and consider donating on Patreon like a couple of you do already. Big thank you to the few of you that do that, and I wish you and yours a very happy Christmas. Hope you're enjoying the Bad Gifts deck this week. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.